A lot of people have been starting what they call a Minecraft Forever world lately, and usually a few weeks in, those worlds quietly stop getting played. I don't think that's because Minecraft suddenly becomes boring, and I don't think it means that those players did anything wrong either. Most of the time, the world just stops feeling good to play in. I've had these types of worlds with my friends before, and those worlds usually didn't end because of one big mistake. We just stopped playing Minecraft for a bit. And when that happens, it's surprisingly hard to come back if the world feels messy, without direction, or overwhelming. So today I wanted to give you 5 tips on how to start your Minecraft Forever world and what to keep in mind. When I start a new world, I don't plan much ahead of time. I usually figure things out as I go, and that's intentional. The moment I try to lock in final versions too early, everything starts feeling restrictive. A lot of people start a world already thinking about the mega base, the massive city, or the perfectly organized endgame setup. And there's nothing wrong with having ideas, but when that end result lives in your head from day one, every small build that you build feels temporary or pointless, and it doesn't add up to what it's supposed to be. A starter base feels like something you're supposed to replace. A small project feels like wasted time because it doesn't fit the scale of what you think the world will eventually become. That mindset makes it harder to enjoy what you're actually building. A world doesn't need a final blueprint, it just needs direction. If you let builds exist longer than you think they should, they start to matter more. A starter base becomes a real place instead of a placeholder. Early farms become part of the world instead of things that you rush to tear down and replace. The less pressure you put on the world to become something specific, the easier it is to keep building in it. Early on, I usually build the same kind of farms. Most people do. Food, cows, basic resources, stuff that gets annoying to gather over and over again. But there's a balance with this, and it matters a lot for long-term worlds. If you automatically do everything too quickly, you'll just end up in a world where there's nothing left to actually do. You log in, collect items, maybe plan a project, and log back out. That gets boring really fast. For me, the goal is removing friction without removing gameplay. I don't want to spend my time constantly worrying about food or basic supplies, and I also don't want to be in a world where every problem has already been solved. Giving yourself nothing to do is one of the fastest ways that you can lose interest. Everyone's balance point is different, but the idea is the same. Automate what is tedious to you and what's not engaging. Leave some things slower, leave some things manual, and let the game still ask something from you. A forever world should feel interactive, not finished. I usually default to centralized storage because it's efficient. Everything in one place is convenient, especially early on. But over time, I've noticed that spreading out things helps a lot in the world and makes it feel more alive. When everything is centralized, you stop moving through the world and you teleport mentally from task to task without really engaging in the space in between them. Old builds fade into the background because there's no reason to go back to them. When storage, farms, or utility builds are spread out, the world naturally pulls you around. You revisit old areas without forcing yourself to, and roads, paths, and travel start to matter. You don't need to spread everything out, and you don't need to do it all at once. Even just having a few reasons to move through the world helps it feel intentional instead of cluttered. A world that encourages movement stays relevant longer than one that everything happens in a single chunk. When people hear lore, they usually think of writing stories or coming up with elaborate backstories. That's not exactly what I mean here. Lore is useful because it answers practical questions. If you give a place a reason to exist, it becomes much easier to decide what belongs there. Instead of staring at an empty area, wondering what to build, you start asking things like, why would this place exist? And what would people need here? That small layer of context turns random structures into story-driven builds, and those tend to be the ones you want to expand later. You're not just building something because you can, but you're building something because it makes sense for the world. This doesn't have to be complicated. Even simple assumptions create direction. If a town exists near a major road, it probably has inns or stables. If an area connects to two important places, it might become a trade hub. If people live somewhere, they need food, water, and places to work. That's enough to generate build ideas for a long time. One of the biggest mistakes people make with long-term worlds is treating them like projects that need to be completed. A forever world isn't something that you finish though. It's something that you keep coming back to over and over again. If every build has to be bigger than the last, burnout is almost guaranteed. The scale keeps increasing, and eventually, even large projects stop feeling satisfying. That's when people either quit or restart. Small additions matter more than massive ones over time. A single house, a small road extension, or a minor upgrade keeps the world moving forward without overwhelming you. If the world feels enjoyable to exist in, you'll keep opening it even after breaks. If it feels like work, you won't. Burnout happens when you push yourself past the point where the game is fun. That doesn't mean that you don't like Minecraft anymore, it just means that you've done too much of the same thing for too long. Switching tasks helps. Sometimes that means building instead of farming, sometimes it means exploring instead of grinding, and sometimes it means not playing Minecraft at all for a bit. A forever world doesn't require constant attention. It just needs to still be here when you feel like playing. Taking breaks doesn't ruin a world. Burning yourself out does. If you find yourself building the same farms in the same order every time, or tackling projects in the same way in every world, it's easy to get bored. Trying things differently, even if they're less efficient, can make the game feel new again. Building something without a tutorial, designing a farm from memory, mixing aesthetics you wouldn't normally use. It might not be perfect, but it usually feels more engaging. Minecraft lasts longer when you let yourself experiment instead of optimizing everything immediately. A forever world isn't about playing perfectly. It's about creating a space where you enjoy spending your time in. You don't need to have everything planned, and you don't need to rush the progression. You don't need to constantly outdo yourself. You just need a world that feels good to return to. If the world works for you, it'll last longer than any checklist ever will.